Okay, so let's look at some more of these feature commands here. The next one on the list is Softbox. So click that, bring it in, and it does just bring in this kind of box. If you were to make this, you'd do a cube, you'd do another cube in the middle with a hole, you'd cut it out. We've already done that earlier. This kind of does it for you, and that's what these are really. These generators are quick ways of doing something. If you tried to scale it with these, it would scale the wall up as well. With this feature, with this generator, this softbox, I'd use these here to put your commands in. So, say you wanted it 50 by 100. Then I would type it in there rather than using these. Obviously, with these, it will. You see, it's scaling the thickness of a wall up as well, which kind of defeats the object of these generators. Let these do the work where they will, and you still have the wall thickness command that you can change here. Okay, you can change the radius of the curves. So you could have sharp corners, you could have fully rounded ends and everything in between. Make that a bit thicker. The height, and then X and Y. So yeah, with these generators, use the commands in here where you can. And that is just, the softbox is just a quick way of creating this with an opening. You can see that you could use that as some kind of frame. So maybe you wanted a picture frame, you could use that. That's softbox. Spring does exactly what it kind of says. It creates a spring. And again, use the commands here. So R1 is the diameter, everything. So you can have that kind of shape. A very small radius and all the stuff in between. Okay, R2 is the radius of the actual circle. So R1 is a profile, R2 is a circle. Okay, and then offset would be the kind of springiness. Okay, and the rotations is the amount of times it's going to go. So these settings here control one rotation, and then you just add the number of rotations. You wouldn't really, even though it's called a spring, you're not going to 3D print a spring in plastic that's going to work like a spring. So it's more a case of an easy way to create this kind of helix spiral type design rather than a spring itself. Okay. Bent pipe. I don't know what that is, but bent pipe. Okay, so it's a piece of pipe. You bring it in, it looks just like a piece of 90-degree pipe. But again, you've got all these selections here. So you can change the pipe shape to square. The pipe refers to the outside, and the inside is a hole. So you could change them both to square, hexagon. Okay, octagon, obviously, everything in between. Outer pipe width. Again, most of these you probably don't need me to tell you what it is. And with TinkerCAD, when you're looking at any of these generators or shapes, the easiest way to see what it does is just to grab it and adjust it and have a play with it. Most of it's self-explanatory. You can see here, you can make it the diameter, the bend angle, and then you have a leading, which is the straight section before it bends. So you can create fairly, I wouldn't say complex, but you know, for TinkerCAD anyway, fairly complex, but fairly involved designs, I suppose. These commands tend to be ways, just quick ways of doing things, as I said. So the more you use them, the more you'll get used to using them, and you'll find your own preferred ways of doing things. So isometric thread. Okay, so this does like a screw thread. So a part that would screw into something else. And again, you have all sorts of things you can change here: the diameter, the pitch of the thread, segments we know, rotation. So like the spring, these settings talk about one rotation. I mean, you can add the number of rotations. Okay. And tip scale, well, tip scale is, so this is a tip. Okay, so it just does that. And the thread scale, again, like the spring, you might not necessarily be making an actual thread to screw in something. It might just be a representation, something that looks like that in your model. Okay. Yeah, fidget spinners. Now, these were all the rage not so long ago. Tend to have just been forgotten about.